Seems like 2021 is just going to be the year of really high resolution, really fast sports cameras. Looks like the way it's going. Now, word of warning, yes, this is one of those videos where we just discuss rumours and speculation about a camera that may or may not ever exist. Why? Because there's a lot of people who enjoy discussing rumours and speculation about cameras that may or may not ever exist. If you're not one of those people, fair enough. Nobody is holding a gun to you and making you watch this video. Unless there is actually someone there with a gun pointed at you, making you watch this video, in which case, blink 3 times, and we still won't be able to help. Anyway, on with the rumour in question, regarding the Nikon Z9. Now, this appears, from what's being talked about, to be Nikon's answer to a mirrorless high-end camera, the Z series equivalent of the D6. Now, what the rumour talks about so far is, firstly, they say it's from a reliable source, although we've seen those go drastically wrong in the past. It says it's expected to be released in the fall of next year. They say prototype Z9s might be tested at the Tokyo Olympics next year. Honestly, if they were releasing this in the fall of 2021, I would hope to God there was people using it at the Olympics. Because the Olympics is running July and August, fall is September to December, so it seems very strange to bring out a camera that's focused at professional sports photographers a month after one of the biggest professional sporting events around. New Nikon Z400mm f2.8 mirrorless lens is also rumoured for the Olympics. That would make sense because really at the moment there are no sports-focused lenses for the Z series camera, so you would hope they'd be bringing out some lenses to back up a Z9, and plus it would make it a lot easier for people to spot. Now we get on to the juicy specs. Z9 is described as a D6 body combined with Canon R1 imaging, Sony A9 II autofocus, and a blackout-free EVF. Which sounds great, but I wonder if it's a bit like a campaign election manifesto where they just promise that they're just going to give you absolutely everything, and then it never turns out quite that way. It sounds fantastic in that respect if they're giving you a big D6 size body, which is going to be something that sports photographers would like. R5 image quality, who's going to knock that? And then autofocus performance on par with the Sony A9 Mark II. All sounds fantastic, but then I'm pretty sure they probably touted that the Z6 and Z7 were going to have autofocus to rival the equivalent Sony cameras at the time, and that didn't really turn out quite so well. And then 46 megapixel camera able to shoot up to 20 frames a second with 8K 30p, 4K 120, 60 or 30p, which I thought was hilarious when I first saw that. This seems to have basically just gone, Canon R5 looks like a good camera. I'll tell you what, let's copy the specs, but we'll just add 1 more megapixel in, just to say that we've got that little edge on it. It's like kids in school having an argument and one of them who always just goes, say whatever the other person says, +1. Yeah, 100, well, I've got 100 plus 1. Yeah, well, I've got 1,000,000. Yeah, well, I've got 1,000,000 plus 1. Yeah, well, I've got infinity. Well, I've got infinity plus 1. Don't know why, that just tickled me. A new X-Speed processor designed for 8K. Well, it's going to need it. Improved autofocus, 2 XQD CF Express Type B memory cards, ISO range 64 to 25,600. New user interface. Now this one threw me a little bit because you've said new user interface, bracket, no second LCD screen on the back like the D6. Except in the renderings you can clearly see that there's a second LCD under the main LCD. So I'm not sure whether that's a typo error on the specs list or whether that's a misrepresentation on the renderings. Who knows? New battery and an EL18X, which is probably going to be the next step up on the EL18 series. I don't even know where they're up to nowadays. Key important bit is that it's not going to be using the EL15 batteries that the other Z series cameras use. Gigabit LAN, USB-C, Wi-Fi, GPS, price $6,000 to $7,000. So All in all, definitely has the spec list of a high-end sports camera. And then there's also rumours that Canon are going to be bringing out an R1 or an R1 equivalent sometime next year as well. Now, all of those were kind of expected given that it's an Olympic year. What surprised me most about this is the same as what surprised me with the A9 and speculation, which is the resolution. All of them are looking 45 to 50 megapixels. I mean, admittedly, we don't know what Canon are planning, but the Z9, they're talking 46 megapixels. The A9R, A9S, whatever, the new A9 is rumoured 50 megapixels. So both of them are looking a twofold increase on their existing high-end cameras. A9 Mark II, 24 megapixels, looking at going up to 50. I know in the previous video I kept referring to the A9s as being 20 megapixels. Don't know why. Nikon D6, they're looking at going over double the resolution. And while resolution is great, as I've said before, it brings drawbacks to it. More resolution is more information that has to be processed, which is more strain on the processors. Now, I know there's processors out there that, constantly getting better and better, and no doubt could handle being able to shoot such a high resolution at 20 frames a second. But it's going to start causing issues with the autofocus while the camera's bogging down trying to process all these files. The autofocus might end up struggling. More resolution also means more banding, more rolling shutter, which is something that sports photographers are not going to want. Now, I have seen a few people saying that the R5 handles all this really, really well. However, I've seen several reviews from pro sport shooters who have been using the R5 in proper real-world scenarios, and they've been showing that the autofocus is jumping all over the place. It very easily gets distracted. There is definite rolling shutter when shooting fast action events, and there's also evidence of banding stripes on the advertising boards behind them, which clearly shows that while the R5 might be pretty quick, the readout speed just isn't as fast as the flagship level cameras that pro sport shooters are currently using. I'm not saying an increase in resolution isn't bad, it's just rather startling how fast the resolution is suddenly leaping. I'd expect more of a gradual increase, maybe go from 24 megapixels up to kind of mid-30s and then maybe mid-40s in a generation or two, rather than this huge big leap in one fell swoop. Honestly, when I first saw the A9 rumor a week or two ago, I didn't think it was going to be a replacement for the A9 II, because it just seemed like too much of a crazy leap in resolution. So I thought it was going to be more of a works alongside the A9 II. It's similar to how the A7 and A7R work with each other. However, having seen this Z9 leak, I'm starting to question if maybe all of them are just going to go with really high resolution and fast shooting speeds, and I hope that they have the processing power and readout speeds to be able to facilitate those. Now, I know we're, less than a week away from an announcement from Nikon regarding what is speculated to be a Z6 Mark II and a Z7 Mark II. Now, these are only rumoured to be incremental upgrades and not like generational leaps, but it might give us a bit of an indication as to what sort of potential there is in a high-resolution Z9, especially with the Z7, because that's already the right sort of resolution that the Z9 is being touted at 45 megapixels. But let's be honest, the autofocus performance of those Z series cameras wasn't really the best. It was pretty decent, but fell short compared to what the competition were doing. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of a jump they can make with this. Now, I know the Z9 is probably going to have even more processing power and is going to be another 12 months away, so there's even more time for improvement. Time will tell. But what do you make of the Z9 rumour? Do you reckon that we are just going to see this very sudden jump in resolution for pro sports cameras? Or do you think it's going to be something a little bit more gradual And do you think Canon are going to follow the same suit with the R1 or go down a different road? Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below while you're down there. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like and the subscribe button. And there is also a link to my Patreon account if you'd like to go and help support this channel. And on a side note, I've just announced a new photo contest for my Patreon backers with a chance of winning a Moser Mini S. So if you're interested in potentially picking one of these up, go and back me on Patreon and get your submissions in. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.